Welcome to the Pay Per Caller Show, brought to you by Ringba.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Pay Per Caller Show. I'm very excited today to have two of my friends in the studio, but also old school industry guys, which makes me really happy because there aren't that many of us left. And that's Ryan Kaufman, who I actually met 11 years ago in San Diego at an event he was speaking at, and we found out that we were not quite roomies. I moved into his old place in San Diego, which was crazy. And Coy. And so I haven't known Coy as long, but we've had a lot of fun, and I'm really excited to have you guys here in the studio. Also, Coy and I are not wearing socks, and I think that brings us closer together.
It does. We're grounded.
Yes, we're grounded.
Yeah.
So we're about to head out to an event tomorrow, an industry event. And I'm very excited about that because education is important to me. And I know you guys are giving a presentation tomorrow, which I'm really excited about. And so what I wanted to do was ask you about some of the things that are in that presentation, and then ultimately maybe dive into a little that you're not going to talk about there. Like, what are some other things that you're not going to talk about there? That way people who went to the event can follow up with this episode and continue that learning process. And so I guess let's start at the beginning. Like, where was your head at when you started writing the presentation? And like, what's your overall goal for like the message you want to deliver?
Yeah. So I think mostly what we're trying to do is teach people things that even existing affiliates might not really know about, or kind of maybe have dived into it but are not too sure. A lot of what the presentation is going to be about is people that are already established in what they're doing. Maybe it's pay-per-call, lead gen, even Nutra affiliate, whatever it may be.
Sure.
More tips and tricks for what they can do to increase profit, find kind of the gray area of every market and like how to build in that. That's going to be actually one of the biggest things I speak about is how to build in the gray, which is maintain being compliant, while also reaching your profitability goals. Kind of all of these things together, just making almost like a 30-minute masterclass on everything that you don't already know about affiliate.
I like that. And so let's unpack gray for a second. I think, and I just want to make sure I understand this correctly, what you're saying is to find the area where other people are not, basically. And so I think there's a misconception in the affiliate marketing industry where you have to engage in practices that aren't compliant or aren't good to actually win. And I know that's not true. And I know you guys know that's not true. And so I just wanted to clarify that around like the gray area. I think ultimately what the goal always is to find an edge where people are not, to find that angle that works that someone else hasn't thought of yet, to like operate outside of the box, but in a compliant way.
Yeah. I mean, the biggest thing about that is like you can write compliant scripts for ads that when someone will have to double read them, like, some of our buyers will be like, oh, that was really clever the way you worded that, because it says something that usually would not be compliant, but the way you put it is actually compliant. So it's finding these little like pockets of creativity where, let's use an example. For example, buyers don't like people saying groceries and stuff and get rent free and everything, right? But you can absolutely say, hey, all this money you're saving on health insurance, you're going to have more money for your groceries, your rent, your car payment, just wording things differently. Even on the creative side, visually on the creative side, putting things in that make someone think something, but it's not actually, non-compliant.
Well, I think that's a perfect example there. I mean, what you just described is essentially what every major insurance carrier advertises themselves. Like, switch to us and you'll save this amount of money on your annual policy. And I find it so surprising for you to touch on something so simple yet so effective that people who aren't writing their own ad copy don't realize. And this is something I love about both of you guys, right? Is that you're actual practitioners of your craft. You actually know what you're doing. You're not like, I'm going to hire someone for this, hire someone for that. Like, you're going to sit down and do the work and figure it out. I'm sure you'll eventually like have someone else do it, but understanding your craft before you teach someone else allows you to like really think about these things in a conscientious way.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say like especially, things are changing so fast right now with, especially in what we're doing with the pay-per-call industry, especially in healthcare, people are dropping left and right, people are getting paused left and right for non-compliant ads. They're running more aggressively because they think running more aggressively is going to get them more money. And like that might be the case for a month or two, right? But it's like unless you learn to build something long term, you're going to get blown out just like everyone else. I see the blacklist, for our main buyer. Every week it grows by 4 or 5 companies because they've been caught running some form of AI, political angles, or saying like, hey, you can get your fair wage card or whatever it may be. But it's like if you just spend the time, and if you can't do yourself, go to a film school, go on LinkedIn, look at kids in film school, hire a kid that's in film school for a scriptwriter, right? They're they're very creative. And that's what we actually recently did is find someone, that has that creative background that can take our ideas and really expand on them. So it's out there. You just have to work for it.
I like that. Now, you've always been super creative when it comes to building businesses in the space. How do you think about running a creative team? How are you putting your creative teams together? Like, how are you guys scaling this process of figuring out how you're going to run ads and then building a team around it?
This is my first time being pretty hands-off on traffic. Like, I'm managing the transfer program and the SMS. Well, we just brought someone in that's taking them over. But I was always our best media buyer or our second best media buyer. And then here with Carter and Coy, like, there's just no need for me. So I'm just trying to get the processes in place and have everything systemized and just give these guys the room to create and be creative and not have to worry. I'm like an operations guy now. It's kind of weird.
It's funny how that happens as we get older, right? Like, yeah. I was telling someone the other day, I was doing media buying for the book. It's the first time I've run ads in almost a decade, and I'm like, wow, I remember how to do this. Like the same principles work, but I'm so out of practice because same as you, I spend most of my time doing operations and strategy and like recruiting and in a different part of the business, I think. Yeah. But I think it's so important to stay in touch with the ads because it's when we do our best work.
It is. I think it is a lot. No matter what role you play in a company, I think at least knowing what your media buyers are doing and what your creative team is doing is vital because you can be blindsided. You think they're doing one thing and like you find out from a complaint that they're doing something completely opposite of what you thought. So I think it's definitely good, to keep in touch with them and kind of just like, at least get a lay of the land once in a while.
Yeah. And to your point, Coy, like there's literally $100 million GOAT award sitting right there. You guys were looking at it when you walked in. I have another one down in receiving right now we have to give away. And these folks that these awards are going to are the ones that, in my opinion, run some of the best businesses in the space. They're very conscientious. They understand compliance. Like, they do a great job. Mm-hmm. And if you were to ask them these same questions, they'd be talking about it just like you, right? Yeah. Like, creativity wins, not trying to just be more aggressive in advertising. Like, you need to think about how the consumer actually wins, too. Because if the consumer wins, the advertiser wins, you win, and like that's a sustainable business.
There was a study done a few years ago actually about advertising and all the different aspects of it. It was basically a pie chart of, reach, targeting, creativity, and everything. And across the board for all of advertising, creativity was still above 40% on importance for reaching a customer and actually making a sale. Compared to everything else, reach was like 8%. Targeting was even less. Mm-hmm. Some of our best creatives and our best work was literally running a broad campaign with ages and letting the creative do the heavy lifting. Mm-hmm. We've had some videos reach 14, 15 million views for ACA on Facebook. Wow. And that was only thing we did was age targeting to reach our age, everything else broad, and letting the creative and the copy do the heavy lifting.
That's incredible. It doesn't surprise me, though. Yeah. I was just on a pod the other day with Harrison for the Affiliate Marketing Show, and we were talking about how the ads we were testing for the book were surprising us, because we went to the Facebook ad library and I looked at like every single person that's running an ad for this, and they're all really simple and image ads, and it seemed too easy. It seemed too obvious. And so we tested like 1,000 ads at this point, and none of those worked. And so I have no idea how any of these people are they're not selling books for sure. Like they're not doing it. And then I got with John Castro and came up with some creative ideas and had like 3 or 4, I think it was 4 film crews at LeadsCon, and we've been chopping up all the content and putting it in there, and everything that I wouldn't have thought to get the job done is getting the job done. And our best campaign right now is actually cold traffic, no targeting, except like, 18 plus or some tighter, wide age ranges, but reasonable. And like that cut our CPA down by 80%.
Yeah.
And this blew me away. Like, are you seeing this across the board? Like, is creative really the key to like performance marketing success at this point?
1,000%. Yeah. I mean, there's still people out there that are doing very niche affiliate. Some people are doing like Nutra and things like that.
Sure.
They will try interest stacking, or they'll make 100 campaigns with different interests, right, that might be related, and sometimes that works out for them. But generally speaking, us personally and everyone that I know that is doing well in affiliate is running broad and letting the creative do the lifting. It's so important. It really is, like across every platform, not just social, like, Google too. Even like some of the tertiary platforms, as I call it, like Taboola and Newsbreak and stuff.
Sure.
It's still the same thing. It's no targeting, only creatives.
Wow. So how many creatives are you generally producing to find wins? Like, what's your creative infrastructure look like now?
Heavy.
Yeah, if you'll nerd out with me, like, what is it?
It's very heavy. I'd say, so across all media buyers, 5 main media buyers, it's about 900 videos per week.
Wow.
Yeah. And that's mainly like, let's say per video we have, main video, obviously we're testing anywhere from 15 to 30 different hooks per variant, as we call it, per script. And we like the way we set up things, we know very quickly what's going to work and what's not, within the first $100.
Yeah.
So we're killing things very quickly, and we have a great infrastructure, that we've created internally for having our script writers that we've hired recently. We send ideas to script writers. Sometimes they create them themselves. They're getting a lot better about that. And then, it sends it over to, our video editors, which are overseas, lower cost. We have 10 different video editors, and they take the scripts, and they've been trained, over the last year to make videos in our style. We have a bunch of B-roll we film, UGC content and everything. They put it all together, put in the voiceovers that we have recorded, and, ship it to our media buyer every day. Every day they're doing this over and over and over. So we're testing, per day, I mean, it's crazy. Some days, I'll see like 150, 175 videos being made,
Wow.
for testing for the next day.
And you're running a champion challenger, so like the best one
Yep.
wins, or the top 3 wins, and then you're
Yeah,
just throwing.
exactly. I mean, so typically it's, we will obviously scale the profitable, one the most and kind of go down the line with that. And then the losers are the ones that are like kind of, what I would say within, break-even margin, which is about 10% profitability. We just cut and just, move on to the next one. One thing we do that I think a lot of people don't do, and they should be, is we actually will go back and rotate in old winners from like a year ago and retest them and see if they'll like hit again.
Yes.
There's a lot of old videos we have that are, something in the news that we like to use, for a hook, and randomly that will come back into the news, and all of a sudden it's slapping again. Their click-through rate is through the roof on it again. So a lot of people just discard their old content.
It's really interesting to hear you say that. So I used to be involved in a e-commerce company that sold fashion accessories, and I had gone into the ad account and created some ads, and then we got lucky with some influencers who did some things, and I had one ad that just was the ad, right?
Yeah.
Like, you get lucky sometimes. This was luck. This was not skill. And I burnt it out. Like, it died. And then I remembered the ad a couple of years later and just randomly logged into the account and just clicked run again. I mean, I'm sure you have to delete a lot of this because you run out. But in this ad account, it was just sitting there with all the comments and likes from 3 years ago. I hit go, and it was the same thing over again.
Yeah. I mean, you bring up a good point, actually, about the comments and likes and everything. You know, it's one of the reasons why a lot of people will reuse post IDs in Facebook because it already has a bunch of comments. Or even comment seeding, you know, something can make or break a creative too. You know, throwing in 100 to 150, you know, kind of these, you know, bot comment replies that you're putting in can sometimes make a huge difference in CPMs.
Interesting. And so you have no qualms whatsoever about discarding the cost of creating 1,000 ads that fail?
No, because it's very cheap. You know, we're using, you know, we have our script writers that we're paying a base salary, and the video editors, you know, overseas are paying a base salary. When you chalk it up to how much time they're spending doing it and how much we're paying and how much content we're getting out of them, it's almost nothing compared to, you know, every other operational cost. It's very minute.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Like, do you actually know on a per creative basis what you think it?
Yeah, so the per creative base is a little hard because once you start making creatives that are both static and video, they take different times. So it's kind of, you know, you have this muddied water you know, in between. But generally speaking, I think our total operational cost per month for our scale is like around $15,000 for the amount of content we put out.
Yeah.
That's like literally.
Yeah, our total operational cost for our entire business is less than $30,000.
Wow.
Yeah, so
that's amazing.
We run very lean and just, you know, create efficiency.
Very cool. And so when you're thinking about creative or you're training your video editing team, it's and I'm sure it's some sort of format of like hook, story, offer. Are they essentially interchanging the hooks on videos they know work, so they're just swapping out hooks, and then once you find one that crushes it, come back in and be like, give me 20 variations of the story in between, and then...
That's 100% it, yeah. So let's say we have a variant that is working. We have a script that's working, the main content, you know, the B-roll that is working, and then we will send that back to them saying, hey, I need 30 more hooks for this, you know, and that's a very quick process for them. So, you know, turnaround's very quick, get it up same day, testing, you know, because if you have a winner, you're just optimizing past that point. You know, you're just finding another 10% ROI on it.
Now, are you separating the video from the audio so that the audio is like an audio track, a voiceover track?
Yes.
In like all circumstances?
All circumstances, yes.
Wow. So you never have anyone on camera speaking or anything like that?
No.
Interesting.
We've tested out some, you know, UGC, which is like, you know, direct recorded with audio and video. It typically does not perform as well for us as our voiceovers with the, you know, all of the B-roll that we've created, you know, over the past, you know, year and a half now for Paper Call. You know, putting that together and, you know, writing the proper script for it has been, you know, our top winner.
Amazing. So I'm going to have to separate some audio from some video tracks.
You know, 11 Labs saves lives. You know, not even like using it for nefarious purposes, like legitimately finding and creating voices that fit, you know, the demographic you're trying to target. You know, and adding in a little bit of slang here and there, you know, again, depending on the demographic you're trying to target. ACA especially. You know, ACA is a very specific demographic, right? You know, you are targeting subprime people typically because of the income requirements. So adding in certain, you know, quirks into your script, you know, audio and script wise can really like add in, you know, people commenting and thinking it's completely real, like this person speaking from 11 Labs.
Now, what we're talking about when finding the voice that meets the audience, you're essentially saying that you want to find a voiceover or use 11 Labs or whatever it is to create a voice that sounds like the person you're targeting, whatever their ethnicity is, whatever their demographic background, their geographic location. For instance, East Coast versus West Coast versus Georgia. Yeah, I find that really interesting, and it doesn't surprise me, but like anytime you tune an audience to someone like me, as I like to call it, I've always seen a much higher response rate whenever putting out an ad like that. So that's super cool. Are you also, when you say slang, are you also thinking about like oh, this is a 65 plus ad. Let me use G Willikers or whatever.
Yeah. So I mean, using those like specific words for your target age, or like you said, location, ethnicity, everything. You know, like an ad we run in Florida will be different from an ad we run in North Carolina. You know, it'll be different from an ad we run in Georgia. You know, both script and audio sound. You know, it just works out that way. You know, it's not a huge amount of difference. You know, I wouldn't say it would like make or break an ad, but it's those little things that take you from being profitable to actually having a good margin that you can scale things. You know, like I said, make things cleaner so you don't have to, you know, wake up one day and realize, oh, your business is done.
Yeah. I think that brings us back to rule number 1 of performance marketing, which is the person who can pay the most money to buy the traffic is going to win the traffic,
Yep.
right? Like,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter if you're running ACA, you're running auto, and I'm running final expense.
Yeah.
Like, if Ryan can pay more CPM than us, it doesn't matter
Yeah.
what the actual offer is or anything. Like, he's just going to win the traffic.
Yeah.
And so also, I think that's where we should talk about, like, you guys are thinking about this level of detail across your entire operation, right? Like, this doesn't stop at the creative.
No.
Oh yeah, we've got so much fun tech being built, and like it's fun being like I guess I'll call myself a former media buyer, but like because they're doing so great on the creative, I'm always like, hey, what if I could pipe this data back to your pixel? What if we start making these changes? And I'm able to be working on just like the holistic systems the whole time, and I'm not getting dragged off when we have account bans or when there's an angle that died. Like, so I'm working on the same project the whole time, which is what you're saying. Like, how do we, you know, we've got the call center for the monetization. We're working more and more on down sells, and we're just working on efficiency across the board. We've got proprietary tech, and we run Ringba, Vici Dial. We've got a Red Track instance. Everything else is custom, and
Very cool. And so are you guys thinking about, like, your entire business stack like a media buyer, like optimizing each segment?
yeah, everything I've done, like I just work outwards from the buy, right? Like you just try and get something 1 penny off a break even. You're like, okay, I can work here, I can get it. So like, I've got my whole dream toy box of stuff that like should be built. And I'm like, all right, guys, as long as you keep this traffic running, as long as we're profitably executing this, our infrastructure is just getting bigger and better and better. And the next time, you know, like there are ebbs and flows to this. We're still running affiliate traffic, you know,
Right.
but like we know on every downswing
now.
when there's another
For now.
upswing. Yeah.
Well, I think you guys, right, like you're evolving your business and you're optimizing every layer of it. You're eventually going to optimize the back end too. It would be silly not to. And I think this is the opportunity that most affiliates miss, right? I was an affiliate 15 years ago and I didn't know how to build a business, but in reality, when you finally have campaigns that work, you have to keep optimizing and
Yeah.
adding layers of everything. Otherwise, you
I
don't
think
have
the
anything.
most important part now, and you know, especially talking about talking about assurance, right? You know, multi-billion-dollar business gone overnight. I think we're going to see more and more now about you have one piece of data coming in. Let's say you're selling a call for ACA, right? That's not going to cut anymore. You're going to have to start thinking about how can I monetize this same inbound 4 or 5 more times.
Yeah.
Like, what can I hit them with? You know, what can I make money off of them with? You know, we get all the data on these people coming in. What can we do with that? You know, it's getting harder and harder, you know, as the space becomes more crowded to simply just run inbound calls. You can't be doing that anymore. You know, it's like you can, but you're going to be one of the guys running, you know, Biden stimmy fair wage checks. You know what I mean?
Which will last 3 days and
Yeah,
then you'll
like,
get banned. And
yeah,
it
I can
doesn't
say,
work.
you know, you'll make your money and then you'll stop making money on it because you'll get caught. Everyone does. You know, everyone gets caught eventually. You know, that the blacklist grows every single day. You know, and it's funny because you'll see these accounts, you know, spamming this stuff for about a week and then boom, gone.
Gone.
Just completely off the face of the earth. So focusing on, you know, monetization for every aspect of your business, every lead that comes in, every outbound you do, everything. I think is so important now.
Mm-hmm. And it's like people still believe, this is crazy to me. People still will take a phone number from someone else and put that phone number on an ad with no data collection, no tracking, no anything in between, because they don't want to invest in the infrastructure. And in calls, you just simply can't do that.
Yeah.
Like, you're not going to win without tracking technology. You're not going to win without some other layer of monetization or innovation that exists inside of your stack. And I'll validate this as someone who sees more data in the space than just about anyone else. Anyone who's doing anything like winning $100 million GOAT Awards, they are adding their own layers of monetization in there. They are building a relationship with consumers that they can keep speaking to them through, right? Like, if you do right by the consumer and you do a really great job by the consumer, you can talk to them multiple times and they'll continue to work with you. And that's where I think most affiliates miss the boat. And this isn't just pay-per-call at this point. I think most new affiliates are like, I'm going to run a campaign. And then they want to find profit instead of, all right, I'm going to do lead gen. I'm going to capture an email address. I'm going to talk to the consumer. I'm going to get them excited about a product. Then I'm going to sell them the product. Then I'm going to follow up about the product. And then I'm going to sell them something else.
Yeah.
And like, very few new affiliates ever do anything like that. And it's a shame because that's when it becomes a business.
Yeah.
Well, I think one of the problems is that, a lot of the existing education, even the people that have sold courses and everything, none of them speak about that. They only speak from strictly, hey, here's your platform you media buy on, here's the kind of angles you use, and here's the verticals you want to attack. And that's it. They don't talk about the nitty gritty. They don't talk about, oh, what do I do with my 20% of no targets, that come through that don't hit a target for my campaign? What do I do with that? They're not thinking of that. They're not even thinking of the simple stuff of like, oh, hey, half of these new targets come in are actual valid states, but they're transplants, from like New York to Florida, for example.
Yes.
Oh, maybe I should look at the zip code they're coming in from.
Yes.
What can I do with that? They just let it go. And, it's just a lot of people don't think about it, and they really need to start thinking about it because they're going to get priced out pretty quickly, I think.
Mm-hmm. And most people aren't even retargeting. What I think is crazy is, and this usually happens to me a few times at a trade show, they'll be like, Adam, give me some tips. Like, how do I do this? I'm like, all right, well, tell me about what you're doing a little bit. And they'll walk me through something, and then I'll ask something like, are you uploading your caller ID data to Facebook to create a seed audience?
Yeah.
And they're like, Facebook lets you upload caller ID data? I was like, yeah, you just export, upload. Yeah. You want to get real crazy, you can do a value-based lookalike with call time instead of dollars. And that's the interesting thing about a phone call is you get the caller ID no matter what. You can append data to it. You have something of value there. And anyone who's not doing something with that is not going to be able to spend the same amount of money on ads.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even without, even for new people starting and they're afraid of spending money, on pending data, whatever, there's so much data that comes in with a call just right off the bat, zip code, cities, carrier, they're coming in on. Like, oh, hey, someone's coming in on, a low-cost carrier, right? You can make assumptions based on that, right? And filter that. Someone's calling in from AT&T. Hey, maybe they want to save money on, their phone bill. Maybe, someone calling in an ACA, calling in AT&T, back when ACP was really, going, oh, hey, this person's probably, someone that can hit for ACP and get them a free phone line.
Yeah.
Like, just off of, like, the basic data that comes in. So people shouldn't be worried about cost when they're first starting. It's just like, do what you can and build into, when you get the revenue.
Well, I thought what's interesting about what you just said is what you said before. And it's the mindset I understand, but I don't think most marketers do, is that you're like, yeah, just get me to break even. Get me 1 penny over break even. And I'm like super geeked about what we're doing.
Yeah.
And so why?
Well, again, I care a ton about the tech stack. I care a ton about the processes. And I've been, doing this a long time. So like I go, okay, if this gives me an excuse to build this and it subsidizes me building this for the next vertical where we're going to be out 4 times faster, 5 times harder, And we get the flexibility, right? Like we started with inbound calls and then transfers, and then now we've got debt going where you have to run forms in English. And we start getting all these components, and it's like, okay, well, we want to do something for these off states. Okay, I've got lead capture here. I've got call transfers here. Just find one buyer to take it. And I don't know. It's all so fun to build. And, yeah, you just have to be in it. Like, I wouldn't be a lot of what we're building will probably end up being a SaaS or could be, But I'm just excited. I would never do it speculatively. I wouldn't go hire the developers, except every time I can push a feature, it's improving our cash flow.
Right.
Like it's just a complete free roll already.
Yeah, and I think that mindset's important, right? Like, if I can make something break even, I'm super excited about it because that means you're close.
Yeah.
You can add the tech stack. You can use the revenue to invest in the future of your business. You can continue to grow. And like, I think that is the mindset it's an entrepreneurial mindset that, like you said, people don't talk about like the strategy of why we're doing what we're doing or how we're doing what we're doing. Because in reality, the strategy of these things is how you get to the next level. It's not actually
Absolutely.
the tactics.
Yeah.
Like it's a luxurious situation we're in where we can be long-term focused from the start. Corey already has a successful business, as does Carter and our other partner, Rob. And I love doing things the right way. So no one's in a rush. We want to build something that's extremely valuable. So we don't have that like, oh gosh, we have to get every ACA dollar today. We get to take the long-term approach with our buyers. We get to think and take our time and iterate. And I mean, the strategy is important too. And like the stuff you get from experience, like we're not overbuilding everything. Everything's like really logical iterations. And then we're able to put things on the shelf and pivot. Like, yeah, when we pivot away from something with traffic, we can put the tech on hold and then wait till it comes back with the next project. And I've had the affiliate curse. I've had a bunch of crashes. I've spent a bunch of time building intricate things for something so niche that you've got little code snippets that are useful in the next thing, but the big system isn't that useful. And here we're processing phone calls and leads and sending text messages and feeding back data to media buying platforms. All this stuff is going to continue being useful, and like I can't wait to see what it looks like 6 months, 12 months down the road.
It's funny to hear you say that. Like, I'm turning 40. I'll be 40 when we drop this pod. And one thing I've learned over the last probably 5 years more than ever is something that Harrison's dad would always say to me, and my leadership coaches say to me, and my performance coach says to me. It's like, Adam, slow down. And the reality is when you can slow down, think things through, build for the long term, that's actually how you go fast.
Yeah.
That's what every good advisor I had, I'd call them up when I get a big idea, and they would all tell me slow down. And I was still just like so I've got like a different perspective on this now because I lost a business. Like I was crushing it in diet and started hiring people and spending a lot of money trying this and that and didn't really have it buttoned up. And I crashed. I lost a couple $1 million, spent a couple of years not in the industry, like embarrassed, not wanting to talk to anybody. And I spent time as a single dad. I got divorced too. And so like now I've got my daughter half the week. I run the startup half the week. And I want it to be peaceful. I want it to be sustainable. I don't need any other crash and burns. Like we're doing great. I'm spending no money and just enjoying. Like we've got so much runway built because we're only 8 months in, and like we've got such a good foundation to.
I remember that 5 years ago we had a call.
Oh yeah.
I remember it, and like I remember where you were at, and I understood the pain. Like I've had multiple businesses fail, right?
Yeah.
Like we were just talking about the affiliate curse and
Same.
what happened with Harrison and I that I talk about in the book. And like, that's just one of many. And I think the number one lesson I learned from that's the same one you're talking about, which is if you can slow down, and like focus on building something sustainable for the long term, you get to keep your peace. And I think it's hard for people like us because I have a million ideas all the time, right? Like I could talk about the last 10 I had with you guys. You'd be like, that's a great startup idea. Let's do it. And I'm just like, well, no. Like if you can singularly focus, you're going to be able to build something bigger. And that was a tough lesson I had to learn too. When I have too many things going on at any given time, none of them get the attention that they need.
That's true. I mean, right before we started this, I texted Rob, hey, I got this idea. I'm going to send you wireframes for it, in like a flow. And it's just like, just all the time. It's like just things come to my head that I'm like, hey, we should have this internally. And then it's like, wait, maybe let's not put him on this because it's going to take too much time to build. Let's do something else first. We'll get to this eventually. And it's hard. It's so hard to curtail that because it's like you said, every day I wake up and it's just like, you have your morning coffee, whatever, espresso, and boom, everything starts flowing and you're like, oh, I want to build this, this, and this. I want to improve this, this, and that. There's no time. It's like you have to pick and choose, go slower, prioritize certain things, do your analysis on it and then work on it.
Yeah. And I think the distractions, like they become distractions, and they're
100%.
fun. They're fun, but man, like these days, I try to avoid anything not Ringba. Like I have like a wall around it, and if it's not that, I'm not going to focus on it. And I still get to build things, still having fun. Like we're shooting a pod in the Mastermind house, and we're going to host events here, and we're doing all sorts of stuff. And I'm busier than ever, and like happier than ever. But by focusing, I'm allowed to like put all my attention into these projects that take years. And like my roadmap right now is like years out, and we're building literally for things we're going to be doing in 2027.
How good does that feel after being an affiliate?
Oh.
Like I could never look 6 months down the road before.
No, it's amazing.
That's true. Yeah, I mean, especially with some of the platforms, and how uppity they get, as I like to say, it's like the day to day, even sometimes it's like it's very unstable. So it's always nice to have these other things that you can actually spend time on, build them out, over time, and actually have a solid, product.
I had a conversation with one of our customers on a Jet Mastermind recently. You weren't there on this one, which is a shame. And he asked me how often I look at my stats. And I was like, I don't know, once a month. Like when I get the financials. Like I'm not.
Yeah.
And he's like, really? And I said, well, how often are you looking at your stats? And he's like, all day, like 6-7 times a day or whatever. And I was like, well, your business isn't in a place where you really need to watch the stats on an hourly basis. You have operations people that are doing that. Your creative team's doing it. You have media buyers. You're like, you don't need to do it. He's like, well, I just love it. And I'm like, think about if you could take a step back away from that, because it's like training your brain to be so focused on the now and extend that time horizon back 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, 6 months, 12 months. The ideas change.
They do.
And the difference in ideas and idea quality and strategy that comes out of the long-term approach is very different. It's not like, how am I going to get an extra, $1,000 a day in ROI? It's like, how do I build an extra $250 million of enterprise value? Like, or how big does the idea get?
I think focusing on the day-to-day like that makes you erratic.
Yeah.
Because you're always reactionary to everything that's happening on a day-to-day basis. I mean, from most of what we do is I don't look at stats every day. It's like we have reports, that are automatically generated, based on the data performance. Most of the time I don't even look at it, once a week maybe, The only time I look at it is when someone is messaging me saying, hey, something is seriously wrong.
Yeah, we got a problem.
Yeah, we have a problem. Something's happened. Our entire infrastructure on Google went down, for whatever reason. Hey, we're super negative today for whatever reason. But besides that, it's like what comes in, and we'll analyze it when it comes in, in a 3-4 week period.
Yeah. And I think that's why you're scaling and doing it in a really big way. And I don't think this is a complex message, but I think it's one that our industry as a whole needs to really internalize. And that is, how do you think long term? how do you do right by the consumer and the advertiser? How does everyone in the value chain win? And then how do you talk about that message so other people can get involved and do it too? And fundamentally, if we have a mindset shift in the industry like that, we'll see more businesses get built, which then creates more opportunity for everybody. And like, you know, I don't know. The way I sort of have been thinking about it now, and maybe it's because I'm getting old, is like, how do we actually grow the industry?
Mm-hmm.
And because when you grow the industry and more advertisers show up and more software shows up and more whoever shows up, like more ideas happen. And I'm like confident enough in myself to not fear that. In fact, I embrace it and want more of it, because when more people come in, like you and I met, you got back into the industry. Like now we talk more often. I learn from you guys. And it's like this circle of like winning that happens. And it doesn't have to be adversarial, which I think is like totally different than a new affiliate that's like, I don't want to show anybody what I'm doing. I don't want anyone to see my ads.
Yeah, I think a lot of that also. It's like, I thought that way for the longest time, right? And once in a while, I get a little twinge of adrenaline when I see someone stealing our ad. I get served my own ad.
Yeah.
It bothers me still. I'm not gonna lie. But not to the extent that it used to. Like, when we first started, like I hired a DMCA company and would just send them a list every day of ads to strike every single day. And I got to the point of like, some people would try to copy us and the performance would be worse. And like, they're getting priced out now, because they're not able to keep up with how much we're rapidly changing our creatives.
Of course.
So they'd be running something that's already dying out. And now it's like, I don't even think about it that much, maybe once in a while, if I see someone, that I know has spent maybe a few $100,000 on it, then I'll send them a nice email saying, hey, you want to settle this, or we're going to go the legal route on it. But you're right. Taking a step back is, I think, is a big, aspect of that. And also touching on what you said about being efficient and growing the space and everything. I think one of the biggest things I've also learned to do is stop focusing on busy work, delegating the busy work to someone else. Because when we first started, I wanted to be hands on everything. I wanted to do, from A to Z. I wanted to be, well versed in everything. But I realized pretty quickly, just like looking at stats on a day to day, it makes you very erratic. It makes you very reactionary when you're doing every single thing, instead of stepping back and building a roadmap, like you said, thinking about 3-4 years in the future instead of thinking about what happened this week.
I'm going to be a little vulnerable about this. Like, I used to be very involved in a lot of the details.
Yeah.
And I am not an integrator. I am not an operations person. Like, my brain does not work that way. You guys know me pretty well. I think some people think I'm a robot. My girlfriend certainly does, but I'm not. I'm like a very creative individual, and I do not want to be in the day-to-day, right?
Yeah.
Like, just a few minutes ago, you walked in, and we were, like, jamming out while I was rearranging all this camera equipment, and, like, I've had so much fun with this nonsense. It helps me be creative, and I filmed an infomercial and all this, and, like, my leadership coaches literally told me, they're like, we want you working as little as possible. And that to me was a really weird thing to hear, because in my mind it was like, what? I don't want to stop working. Like, this is my life. This is all I do. And they were like, no, we don't want you doing any of the like work.
Yeah.
You need to focus on sitting around, thinking about the future.
Yeah.
What your strategy is going to be, not implementing and executing that strategy.
Do you find that now, mentioning this, do you disconnect sometimes and like have a hobby that you use to kind of like free yourself from that connection to the company?
Well, this has been a really interesting transition period for me. So, like last summer, I got divorced and I moved to Miami. And I reprioritized my life, so I moved my priorities to health, education, relationships, which is business and personal, and then wealth, right?
Okay.
Like, so it's at the bottom of the list. And what I have found since I changed those priorities, and I have even written a whole personal development course on that, we're going to host an event here about it, is that I'm in the best physical health I've been in 20 years. Like the last time I was 160 pounds I just got my blood work back. The last time I was this good was I was 17 and a junior Olympian. And so I work out a ton. I go to hot yoga a ton. And I have like scoliosis from working too much that's self-imposed, and I have a knee issue from skiing and arthritis in my toe, and like just I have some issues. And so like all of that got me out of this loop of like working hurts, and so I need to like work less, but I'm so competitive I like dive in and work more.
Yeah.
And then I actually haven't picked up any hobbies, but I've changed how I interact in my relationships. So like my girlfriend now travels with me wherever I go, as opposed to before where it was a work event and I wasn't going to do that. Or, well, I mean, frankly, in my last relationship, I don't think she wanted to, so it wasn't an option. And I don't have anything bad to say about that. It was a very values changed, divergent sort of thing. She's cool. But like the hobby thing, like you're saying, is like I'm just now making a point to keep the people that are super important to me next to me whenever I have the time to interact with them.
Yeah.
Right? So it's health first. A few months ago, I refused to take a meeting that was important to go to Pilates, and that was a big change for me. And it was really hard for me to do that. I was like,
I'm actually getting stressed thinking about this. Like,
it was really hard. And not only that, it was with the CEO of a big client we're onboarding, like a public company. And I just emailed the assistant and was like, hey, I can't do that time. It was the only time they gave us. I'm like, simply can't do it.
Yeah.
And you know what they did? They rescheduled.
Yeah,
they rescheduled.
Yeah, but, you know, I bet leading up to that, when you sent that, you're thinking, what if they don't respond? What if they don't reschedule? What if they say this is the only time? You know, it's like, because that's going through my head right now, even like thinking about that. You know, it's like you become such a service to other people. And like you have to realize once in a while, you need to be a service to yourself. Like,
well, that service I do to myself allows me to serve others better.
Yeah.
And I couldn't serve them as well. Like I used to lay on the floor because of the scoliosis for like an hour or something, like when it got really bad, because it's just like hacking away. And I don't have that anymore. So now there's none of that. And so I can serve people better because of the priority shift. Or, you know, like when I'm at a trade show, I can take an hour. Like I hosted the Medicarians CEO dinner, and people at that dinner were like, Trish from DMS asked me, she's like, you're not eating. Like, what's going on? Are you okay? And I was like, oh no, like I'm entertaining y'all, and then I'm taking my girlfriend out to dinner after this. And she's like, whoa.
yeah.
But like that like disconnection spot that I have is where a lot of creativity and ideas come from.
Very true.
You know, like I work 7 days a week, probably like you guys
Yeah.
do. It's just like a thing. And so Sunday after I went to Barry's boot camp, I was like literally, this is embarrassing. It's like literally up in my room in the Mastermind house, like jumping up and down on the bed, listening to Martin Garrix.
Okay.
Okay. Like this is my life now.
Yeah.
Like on my phone, taking notes about some things I want to work
This
on.
is what we call New Age 40.
Yeah, New Age 40.
Yeah.
At first I was like, is this a midlife crisis? Like, no, I'm not having a midlife crisis. But like that disconnection, that's where my creativity comes from. And like, you could ask our media team that works with me. There's 5 people on it, and I think they got like 20 plus emails in the 45 minutes I was up there, just like rocking out. And they have no idea this happened. So sorry, team, if you're like watching, like that's what was going on. But like to your point, a hobby does this exact same thing. Some type of disconnect. I love to read too. And so working on a creative project for me is like a hobby. Like writing the book was a hobby for me. Like that was amazing. Doing the audiobook even was a slog, but it was fun because it was like a new experience. Anyways, like, that's how I've like changed my priorities and disconnected over the last year. And here's the thing, like our portfolio of businesses are growing the fastest they've ever grown. I'm working on more projects than I've ever worked on, and the work product is better.
Yeah.
I've added 20. I mean, just the Ringba team. We've added 24 people since that event happened in my life. Since then, I'm bringing on a new senior executive today, who has done some amazing things before, and so like the quality of people that are coming into my life are higher.
Yeah.
And I think it was all from that sort of radical mindset shift where I removed the business as the number one priority and put it below the self-care, the mental care, the relationships, the education, that type of thing. Even this event, right, that we're going to now.
Yeah.
I just did 4 trade shows back to back and a work event in between. So I was gone for 3 weeks before this, and I'm still going out for that because it's education. And I was like, fuck, that's a priority. I have to do it because it's like my birthday, and all I really want to do is like sleep or take a break, right? But I'm not. I'm going to New York with you guys. That's why we're here right now. And it's going to be educational. Like, this is a hobby to me.
Yeah.
Like the creative work. So
I think it's super important to have a disconnect like that. You know, for me, you know, we spoke about it a little bit before, but it's like I like buying old, you know, classic cars. You know, I rent a warehouse. I have a lift in it, you know, tools. I love just disconnecting once in a while. Getting, you know, totally offline, sometimes in the middle of the night, right? You know, because sometimes it's the only time you have free. But
he's doing some late night engineering mechanicking.
Yes, I have.
OEP, like you could.
Yeah, I've sent
OEP,
pictures in our chat before at like 2 a.m. trying to pull an engine out of a Mustang, right? Yeah, so, you know, but doing that, it's like working with my hands, something completely different from, you know, digital. You know, I leave my phone in the house, you know, no one contacts me. I'll send the photo after, right? It's changed my mental health around business tremendously.
Well, it changes your trust profile too.
It does.
So,
being able to trust people to do things,
I was in a yoga Pilates class right before you guys came over, and there was a girl next to me, and she's literally texting on the mat. And like, they have lockers. I put my phone in the locker. I like completely disconnect for that hour and 15 minutes. And I see there's like a bunch of people in class doing this. And I'm just like, do I want, like, who wants to be that available? But also think about like the mental health of needing to be that available. Your brain has no time to actually come up with ideas.
Yeah. Just like I was speaking, you know, you become reactionary to everything. Everything's erratic. You're reactionary. You're not thinking about the future. You're thinking about, you know, in the now. You're thinking about, oh, this problem just came up. What can be done about it? It's like, that's why you hire good people. Yeah. You know, you hire good people. They handle it. You know, they have people under them that can handle things for them too, you know? So yeah, it's just, it's a monumental change to think about things, especially for me. It's like last year, I truly felt like I was never offline 24 hours a day, you know, because we were, you know, with the very first company we started, we're a very small team at the time. And it just was like, you know, we were doing everything. All of us were doing the media buying, the account management, the biz dev, you know, content creation, you know, all of it together, never turning your brain off. You get burnt out very easily doing that.
Yeah, exactly. And I think your hobby and like my priority changes, they've allowed me to go harder.
Yeah. Yeah.
And be more engaged in what I'm doing. And one thing you said is really interesting, like letting your team handle things for you. I think if you're going to be so engaged that you won't put the phone down for a workout class, like that is a toxic connection to work. And if you aren't willing to trust your people, you're never going to get good people.
Yeah.
Because the reality is, like, we do business, right? Like, I serve you in our current relationship. But I know you well enough that if we needed to do business in another way, we could. And that's built on trust. Like, I thought it was awesome when you guys started working together, and Ryan would not work with you, I know, if he didn't trust the relationship. And so, like, if something happens and it's his responsibility, you don't even think about it.
Yeah, it's true.
And so if you're willing to trust people,
Yeah.
you can get higher quality people
Yeah.
to come work for you.
It's a great point because I don't even put a single thought into our dialer setup or the call center at all. Zero. I never think about it because I just know he's got it. He has the knowledge to do it. I don't have to think about it. If he came to me and it's like, oh, I need help doing something, obviously, you would.
Yeah.
But on a day-to-day, I truly do not think about it. Like, I think probably today is the first time I thought about it in maybe a month, speaking about it now. Yeah.
If you don't trust your people,
Yeah.
they're the wrong people or there's something wrong with you.
Yeah. Agree.
And either way, it has to be handled because otherwise you really can't scale. We have 73 people on Ringba's team or something right now. I don't get involved with anything any of them are doing for the most part, except for vision and like we train and that type of thing. But if I had to get involved in everything all these people were doing, I'd drive them insane.
Yeah.
And then I wouldn't be able to focus on the future.
Yeah.
It is a tough change. Like we've kind of gone in and out of that topic, but like when you're switching from like worrying about the daily stats to worrying about enterprise value, or when you're starting to prioritize health or mental health, one of the things that makes this a lot better, and like my big change that I made, like I still wrestle with the priorities, right? Like I went on a big like health is a priority kick, and then I had this startup, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be able to make all this money right away, and I went back to business first. But like one of the things I've learned over the years too is like what I tell myself to keep workloads moderated is just that it takes the exact same amount of energy to sustain something as it does to build it.
Yep.
I used to always do these like Adderall fueled manic sprints. Let's build the thing
Same here.
in 3 weeks.
Yeah.
All right, I'll figure out the whole thing in 2 weeks. And you get addicted to that pace. Then
Yeah.
it becomes completely unacceptable for something to take 3 months or 6 months. And you do this across a span. I mean, I've been in this business forever, so I can say across a span of decades, like you start realizing all the stuff that you never built, that you could have built. You could have built it at a snail's pace and it would have been done. you know?
Yeah.
And but it is tricky, but it's so worth it. Like I can see more than 6 months down the road now. And like the thing that helped me with the discipline is I've got my daughter Thursday through Sunday. So if I just burn it down Monday through Wednesday, by Friday when she's off school and ready to play, I've got nothing in the tank.
Yeah.
So I'm like
Yeah.
making decisions on Monday and Tuesday based on still having like energy on Friday. And then it keeps you from like I still do plenty of busy work, and I set everything up myself the first time.
Of course.
I have the goal to get out of the job as soon as possible, but I need to understand it. I need to do it to have a vision, to make sure it's good, and to have a vision for where it's going to go. Because if someone else does it right away, I don't know. I haven't done it myself to know where it's going to be when things scale up or, get more complicated. But yeah, I'm doing my best. Like our group chats go late, but I'll kick my phone into personal mode by 6, 7 o'clock any day towards the end of the week when it's nice out and I want to go with my daughter. Of course, I always show up when there's something to do.
Of
Yeah.
course.
I would have had trouble doing the Pilates class. I commend you for
Like I
that
said,
one.
that one stressed me out a little bit hearing about that. But I mean, I get it because it's like, I've done things like that recently, where, I'm married, I have a kid, right? And I have another kid on the way. And for me, it was like, I made like almost like a New Year's resolution, basically, was to make sure I'm putting more family time, because the first year of grinding, for pay-per-call was just insane for me. Like I was saying, we're doing all these tasks, but by actually making more time and taking the time away from business, spending time with family, spending time with people I love, you're right. It's like it allows you that when you are in that zone for business, you're working harder, you're working more efficiently, and you're thinking more clearly.
Yeah. And I think the way I tricked myself into this mindset, obviously I had a major life event happen, right?
Yeah.
But to trick myself into this mindset, I quickly realized that, like, for me to get the best business performance, I have to prioritize these other things
Yeah.
first. And then the outcomes I get are better for the thing that I was trying to move as my number one priority
Yeah.
anyways.
it's funny talking about this because you see what I like to call the guru life, on Instagram and TikTok and everything, where you've got these guys screaming at you, you need to wake up at 3:30 in the morning and be ahead on the business and work till 9 p.m., 10 p.m. And it's just like, who the fuck are you? like what are you talking about, man? Like, that's not what you do. Like, you will do that for a month or two, maybe 3 even, and you will burn out.
Yeah.
You will burn out and you will become less efficient. You will give up on your idea. You'll give up on your business you're trying to start. It's not sustainable. It just, for no one.
No. And I think if we're young and we're at like rock bottom,
Yeah.
obviously there's
Sure,
some
there's
merit to that.
circumstances. Yeah.
But
yeah.
in general, you're right. It's
Yeah.
not a sustainable practice. When I was at rock bottom and I was like 21 years old, I did 8 months of that to
Yeah.
pull myself out, and then
And you're probably miserable.
I was miserable.
Yeah.
I had no choice,
Yeah.
right? But as soon as I could level out towards something sustainable, I did, and I think that's what we all need to do. I don't think as an entrepreneur work-life balance really exists. It's not a balancing act. It's how do you integrate all these things
Yeah.
together so that everything you're doing benefits the people you care about, which includes your staff, your
Yeah.
team,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like all that. So, well, all right, guys. Thank you so much for coming over to the Mastermind House. We're going to go eat a shitload of sushi
Yeah.
right now. Thank you
Nice.
for watching.
Awesome.